Anna.
Yeah, I've met, yes.
Yeah, and Rebecca, you know,
Hey.
and Michael. And those two guys back there also work for MSTE. Actually, those three guys all back there. It's Andrew and Evan and Dan. And Doug, you want to say a little bit about yourself? Sentence or two?
Came to U of I about 40 years ago,
Uh-huh.
and I retired. I'm an environmental physicist.
Okay. I guess a clear interest in IC then.
Pardon?
I said you've got a clear interest in IC and what we're doing, so.
Very.
Yeah, right. Well, thanks again for inviting me. I thought I would just share a little bit about, the background of how IC was formed, what kind of activities we've been doing, and, how you all might be involved in what we're trying to achieve here. So, I don't know if you sort of recall, but in 2012, campus had a series of focus groups in which they asked, 700-800 people participated in those across campus, and people were asked on what were the most pressing issues that the campus should be investing in in the near future. And from that, energy and environment sort of emerged as really top, the most frequent issues that were raised in terms of the grand challenges we should be addressing. And so sustainability, energy, and environment were sort of in the top in that word cloud. I think there were others: inequality, health and wellness, and so on. And so that kind of motivated the chancellor at that time, Phyllis Wise, to create this Institute of Sustainability. And the goal of this institute is really sort of threefold. So it has a pretty broad mission, despite the fact that it's very small in terms of the number of people working in it. But the first one is to foster actionable interdisciplinary research across campus. The emphasis is on the word actionable, which means that it is really to foster research that has got practical applications and something that can be achieved in the near to medium term, that is interdisciplinary. So it is not meant to in any way compete with the disciplinary research that's taking place on environmental issues across campus in many departments. But this is to make sure that there are connections across departments in what we're doing in order to address this sort of grand societal challenge. The second mission is to facilitate interdisciplinary education on campus and outreach activities, both on campus as well as to the communities. And then the third one is to make sure that our campus becomes more and more sustainable. And so it is to kind of be able to sort of walk the talk and show that we can actually implement what we want the rest of the world to do. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about each of these three missions, where we are, what we're doing. In the area of research, we identified 5 themes that we could use to categorize the kind of research that's happening on campus and where we see there would be interest in interdisciplinary work going forward. So the first one is related to climate, energy transitions, which is a transition to renewable energy, sustainable infrastructure, which includes roads and other infrastructure, vehicles for better transportation, water and land issues, and then sustainable agriculture. And so the idea was that the campus would provide a fairly significant amount of seed money, which they did, and that would be used to fund competitively selected proposals that would be interdisciplinary in nature across these 5 themes in order to stimulate this interdisciplinary research experiment. And the idea was to fund research that was likely to generate a 10 or 20 to 1 return on investment and could lead to some large centers being formed on one of these or one or more of these areas, or be able to attract corporate funding in these areas. And so it sort of, we're now in our 3rd year, and we funded 7 of these grants. These are seed grants that were selected over the course of 2 years and relate to issues related to better technology that could be developed, as well as infrastructure and agricultural methods as well. So in the case of technology, the smart water disinfection, this is led by Civil and Environmental Engineering. It's a research project it's a research that is trying to develop simple devices that you could put into the hands of people in developing countries, and they can use that to get clean drinking water in an easy and convenient way. And so, and again, it's because it's interdisciplinary. It includes people from Civil and Environmental Engineering, College of Business, and others, in order to not only make sure that you develop the technology, but have a marketing plan and an implementation plan. The second one is to deal with the issue that, here in the Midwest, we produce a lot of corn and soybeans, and those create a lot of environmentally negative effects. So the idea is, can we move away from this annual agriculture model to having a more diversified agriculture, which includes perennial trees and plants like hazelnut and chestnuts, which can actually provide the same functional characteristics as corn and soybeans, but they are much more environmentally benign because they're perennials. They have a lot of other environmentally friendly processes related to them. So that's a grant funded in NRES. The third one is crops in silico, that is looking at how can we develop plants that are much more higher yielding and much more adaptable to climate change. And so this is sort of trying to improve the functioning of plants, their photosynthesis and so on, and to do that using computational methods and then implementing that in practice. So it's sort of using these virtual plants. You develop virtual plants on the computer which have got better mechanisms, and then you plant these and develop you change plants, you bioengineer plants basically using computational techniques.
So is that the silico?
Yes, that's in silico. Yes.
Computation, okay.
Yes, yeah. Steve
Oh,
Long.
iSEE is in vivo or
Right.
iSEE in silico. That's a new term for me.
Right. So Steve Long has actually been really successful in getting. He has a $25 million grant from the Gates Foundation, basically to improve the photosynthetic mechanisms for plants and increase yields. He's been involved in some really very innovative research trying to convert plants, even the functional characteristics of plants. So, for example, sugarcane. We know that it produces sugar, which is easily you can squeeze the sugar out. But just if we want to use this for producing bioenergy, you still have to convert the sugar into energy and into fuel. And so he's involved in research that is actually changing the oil content of sugarcane, so that you can not only you reduce the sugar content, but you increase the oil content, and now you can squeeze oil out of sugarcane. Similarly, with some of these other plants, you can change the mechanisms in them, and that's part of this, his work, and this is sort of related to that effort. Bruce Litchfield is in ag and bioengineering, and he's been working on solar stoves, and to produce this equipment that can be used to cook on at night when the sun is not shining. So the idea is to create these devices that can be used in remote locations where you may not have electricity available, or in developing countries where you don't have the grid as easily available. And the challenge is that you have solar, but if it can only be used in the daytime, then it's pretty limited. And so he's developing that technology. There is, and then Brian Allen in WetMed is looking at how to deal with stormwater, and associated with that is these issues of insect control and disease control, mosquitoes and Lyme disease and so on. And so that kind of gets into this whole area of climate change, because we know with climate change you're going to see more of these types of disease, like the Zika virus, or there could be, mosquitoes and ticks and so on. Their frequency is going to be increasing. And so how do we develop methods, and how do we understand better on how to control these kinds of problems in the future? Tom Overby has, from electrical engineering, and some people from civil engineering, and I'm part of this, we're looking at ways that we need to improve our vehicle transportation system. So as we move away from gasoline-powered conventional vehicles to alternative types, what is a good portfolio of different types of vehicles that we should be moving towards that are lower carbon? So we could, we have many choices. We could go towards electric vehicles, natural gas vehicles, flex fuel cars. They all have their infrastructure requirements, and you obviously need a portfolio of these different types of vehicles. How do we move in that direction, and what kind of policies and regulations and so on do we need? And then Dipanjan Pan has a technology that he has developed, which is like scrubbing bubbles, essentially, but it's meant to be scrubbing oceans of oil. And so this is something to clean up oil spills after, when you have oil spills like the Deep Horizon incident and others. Sorry, going in the wrong direction. And so that's sort of been one of the objectives of iSEE. The second one has been really to facilitate the process of getting grants in the future, and to be more nimble about forming teams and being able to pursue opportunities as they come up. And so in order to do that, we've created these networks, virtual networks of scholars. We have a lot of scholars in the area, a lot of institutes also. I mean, not just people, but there are 20 or 30 institutes just working on water in one shape or the other, and there's often not enough communication among them, and so this is to create a network of water scholars. We've got a network of energy scholars. All this information is now centralized on the iSEE website, and it's much easier to find people. It's categorized by areas of research, and there's obviously a lot of overlap, and so there's ways to find people on particular specializations by doing that. And there's a council of energy scholars that kind of oversees this and provides a way to you can target particular opportunities to them so that they can disseminate it.
Can you say more about that council of energy scholars?
Yeah.
Who's on this council? How often do they meet?
The head of, I think the person leading that council is Rizwanuddin from Nuclear and NPRE. So it has people, we can go to the website and see, but it has various other, I can't remember the names of the others on it, but he's the one leading it. I don't think they meet very regularly. I think it's mainly meant to be a way to funnel and channel information to them.
Yeah.
We call upon them on whenever there are opportunities for proposals that come up. We recently had a big Congress on energy, and so they helped to organize that. So it's things like that. I mean, it's yeah. And we're now in the process of creating a climate scholars group that's going to be coming up. So as I said, I mean, in the case of proposal development, I mean, we've been very active in trying to bring these teams of researchers together and supporting. And so iSEE has a really good support staff now to help submission of large interdisciplinary proposals. They've got the whole process worked out and figured out. And as part of that, we made some initial forays, and we are interested in kind of being a conduit for being able to help researchers who'd like to talk about, propose broader impacts. I mean, all NSF grants and others, USDA, AFRI grants, and so on, require a significant component to be on broader impacts. And one of the constant challenges that we struggle with in writing these proposals is that very often we don't really have anything concrete to propose in that. So we end up making up stuff at the last minute, half a page of this, and
You need to bring us over.
yes, so we get dinged for that, and reviewers notice that, and they tell us that, oh, you didn't do this, so we need to get better at it and be able to actually do something, propose something that is more, real and credible and doable. So K through 12 education is one of the things that NSF cares a lot about, and we don't really have a very good mechanism. As far as I know, individual researchers have been able to develop these links with schools and be able to propose things that they're going to do at the K through 12 level. But once their project ends, then that thing goes off, dies down, and it's lost. So what we would like to do is to be able to serve as a platform, really, where we could connect researchers to schools, and we wanted to do that. We would like to do that with MSTE's help, because none of us are experts on K through 12 education and curriculum. So in the past, that's the kind of proposals that where we brought you guys in. And we're waiting for that first hit for something to get funded,
That's
and then
right.
we can
We're in
actually,
agroforestry. And of course, we have some involvement in Bruce's.
Yeah, that's right.
Lingering,
Yeah, with the solar, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something that we would like to work on and kind of really make it more real. And we'll continue to look out for opportunities to do that. Yeah.
Can I ask,
Go
as
ahead.
you're growing your networks, if you have say symposia where they're presenting their projects and where they might share what they would want to share with the broader community, like
Right.
when Jana and I meet with early researchers who are going after their career grant, Jana always asks them, tell me in a sentence or a paragraph, what is it that the public should know about your project? And if there were ways, what's that?
I said usually not that nicely. Usually I just ask them why they should care.
Well, that's why I'm there. But I mean, if you have, as you're creating, making these networks go, and having meetings, if there are opportunities for the broader impacts or the educational component folks to be there to kind of ask that question or share ideas about how things might fit within what we know about existing curricula, existing programs, outreach programs, because there are, as you know, many things going on, but the fit may not be quite exact. But
Right.
we know a lot of it.
Yes.
So
Right. No, definitely that is something on my mind, and as so I'm looking out for cases where there is an interest in having a section on that, and then to sort of get back to you guys. The other aspect of broader impacts is just extension activities, community outreach, and there we tend to have the ACES extension group to do outreach to farmers and things like that. So that's another area that we include. And then, iSEE is really just a service organization, so we don't keep any of the indirect costs that come from these proposals. Those go back to the departments from where the faculty are coming. So we're, really careful about not wanting to at all, step on the toes of departments and academic units. We see our role as simply facilitating, the work that they do and enhancing it and adding this interdisciplinary component to it. And so there's really no competition at all with the departments for resources. Our current funding has been, the Institute was set up with funding from the Baum Family Foundation, and so that's that's what is currently there. We've also gotten some money from just corporate support from alumni, and then on the last one you'll be interested in is that campus has been increasingly becoming much more energy efficient, switching to renewable energy, and because of that we have generated a lot of carbon savings. We've reduced our carbon emissions compared to what those were before. And so a year ago we were approached about Chevy was interested in purchasing carbon credits from us to retire as their effort to do good for the environment. And so we ended up selling our carbon credits for about $800,000 to them. And that's generated funding that's going to go into further improve the sustainability of campus in terms of the energy area and reduce carbon emissions in the future, kind of invest in that. This year we have again generated about $700,000 worth of carbon credits that are going to be sold. And so this, increasingly this is turning out to be a very not only environmentally friendly but also a revenue generating source in terms of providing money for further investments in energy savings. We're in the middle or in the process of creating something called a storeroom for carbon offsets. So we will have something like 10,000 tons or whatever in a bank on campus, in a virtual bank, and we're going to create the mechanism for faculty, staff, students, anybody who wants to purchase those in order to offset their own carbon footprint. So this is particularly relevant for many of us who travel a lot, and so we're in a lot of travel emissions. A trip from here to Europe, you can calculate what your carbon emissions are, and then at a particular price, doesn't come out to a whole lot, $30-40 additional on your ticket, really would offset the carbon emissions. And so we're going to allow that option as a way to further reduce, because travel is apparently a huge source of emissions from our campus. And I'll talk a little bit about that as part of our campus sustainability effort. So let me talk a little bit about education and outreach, which is what I am in charge of. So we've done a couple of things. Our most important activity in the last year or so has been to launch this minor in sustainability, energy, and environment. It's an undergraduate level, campus-wide, interdisciplinary minor. We started that launched that at the end of November 2015. So we've had our first round of students enrolled in the spring, and we're now in our second round of enrollments. We've reached about 50 students enrolled so far. There are 6 departments participating in this, and it's really open across campus. As part of that, we've developed 2 new classes. One is sort of tools for sustainability, which is to teach students about things like life cycle analysis, cost-benefit methods, and so on. And we're working on a capstone project-based learning course for them that they would do in their senior year, that would kind of apply in a more hands-on way all the learning that they've done. And the idea is to give them some practical experience through internships. We're working with the research park to see if we can partner with companies like Deere, Caterpillar, Ameren, to generate some capstone research experiences for the students that they can work on here, and that might be sort of mutually beneficial. And the second activity that is sort of our major signature activity has been this iSEE Congress that we have been holding every year since the last 3 years. The first of these was focused on feeding 9 billion people, paths to sustainable agriculture. The second one was on fresh water and water issues. Just this year in September, we had one on Energy 2030, Paths to a Sustainable Future. And now I'm working on the next one, which is going to be on climate change impacts and adaptation. This is a conference which the goal is to showcase and bring together scholars here on campus working on these issues so that they get to talk to each other, interact with each other. And about half of our speakers are internationally well-known scholars that come. And the idea is to have a pretty broad-based, high-level discussion on current issues related to that, the current state of knowledge, future research agenda, and do it in a way that's accessible to people across campus. So it's not meant to be, a technical drill down on solar or wind or anything in particular, but really providing overarching kind of views on the key issues, where the science is, what the challenges and the obstacles are. So we've been successful in it. It seems to be growing in terms of attendance and participation.
People come from all over the country?
Yeah, people come from all over, and all over, and a few international, but generally of course, coverage of issues is all international, and we do a number of other outreach activities on campus and off campus. Our two major ones that we organize every year are Earth Week in April and Sustainability Week, which is coming up next week. We do a number of other, we sponsor other interdisciplinary efforts in water, economics, and so on. The next one that, we hope you'll all attend is the one that is on coming up next week, which is the Campus Sustainability Celebration. It's going to be on October 26th. So, it's open to everybody, 4 to 6 in the Alice Campbell Alumni Center. And in addition to just coming and recognizing the efforts being made by campus, there's awards for participation, and I'll talk about that in a bit. We also have a big recycling drive that's going to happen then. So if you have, if you could just go to the Bennett, if you go to the sustainability website, you'll see this. Sorry. So you'll see the. If I can get this thing to work. Anyway, the Bennett campaign. There's a website there on, and what we're looking for is for people to bring recyclables. It's really to provide education of what can you recycle on campus, and what you cannot, and also to encourage people to sort out their recycling so that they bring things that can be more easily recycled. So you're encouraged to bring in different types of recyclables, plastic bottles, cans, paper, things like that. And when you do that, you're going to be entered into a drawing, and there are going to be cool prizes and so on given after that. So if you're interested, this is going to happen on the quad. That was the original idea, but due to rain, we may have to move it to Lincoln Hall or whatever, but just watch out for that information on the website. So this year it's recycling. Last year we had done things on, we've done things like shut down the lights, where we've had student volunteers come and, turn down lights in the evening. All the buildings have these lights open. There's a lot of energy consumption and energy wastage that happens. So it's just ways to increase awareness on campus about the need to be more sustainable ourselves. We've done things with the community, with small businesses on trying to increase energy conservation, having them participate in like an Energy Star Challenge program to track their energy usage, to cut down their energy consumption, and so on. We're currently working on a climate change task force with the cities of Urbana-Champaign, Savoy, and the MTD, and others. Carl is involved in a way to try to just start the conversation about preparedness for the kind of hazards and disasters that might come up as the climate is changing. I mean, disease prevalence is one of those. So the Zika virus is one example. It's not due to entirely climate change, but those kinds of problems are likely to increase, and to see how well we are prepared as a city to deal with things that might happen as you have increased storm events or droughts and variability in climate. How do we adapt to that and prepare better for that? There's a lot of student activity on there's a student sustainability council, there's a students group that is obviously collecting a lot of money through fees that is being then used to support projects on campus. So we generate about $1 million that students are voluntarily paying as part of their fees, and that is being directed towards sustainability activities. And so there's a student leadership group that we oversee. The decisions are made by them, but iSEE provides the oversight for that. So those just ways that to increase participation among students on campus. We have a pretty active communication mechanism through our newsletter, through our website. We are also use social media quite effectively to get the word out. Campus sustainability, so campus signed a pledge that by 2050 they would try to get their net GHG emissions to zero, and in fact they'd like to do it sooner, by 2030 or so. And there's, it's a very detailed plan that has been laid out, and the previous chancellor, the last chancellor, this was done in 2010, and then again it was renewed in 2015, and so now we're in the second phase of the Illinois Climate Action Plan, and we've got very specific quantitative goals in what we would like to achieve. Of course, air travel is one of those, is to try to reduce the increased emissions coming because we are traveling more. And so we have an associate director of campus sustainability who works with the FNS in order to try to find ways that we can improve our buildings and our infrastructure in order to make it more sustainable. That process is something that involves iSEE, but also involves faculty, students, and FNS. So the process for that is these SWAT teams have been created, the Sustainability Working Advisory Teams, that include there are 6 of these, each one having faculty, student, staff membership. And on particular issues, they meet regularly. They come up with a plan of what we need to do to meet the ICAP goals. And then those are filtered up, and then they finally make their way up to the leadership, and so that's how we're kind of bringing issues up to the campus leadership in order to decide how to allocate resources and what needs to be done. So and where they become relevant is, for example, is we need to we've invested in a solar farm that you might have all seen. We are going in for more wind energy. Purchasing agreements in order to get more wind energy. We have a net zero space policy now, which means that no new built up space is going to built up space is going to occur unless if we want to build a new building, we have to get rid of an old one. So we're not going to be expanding, and that's again to reduce our footprint. Another one that you might be interested in is something called the Certified Green Office Program, that where we are engaging offices in building, units, departments, in order to encourage them to participate in energy and resource conservation. And there are some specific actions that can be taken. So we've got a number of offices that have signed up to do that, and they come up, they make a pledge to cut down their energy use or recycle more and so on. And then, based on those efforts, we give out awards, and those will be some of the people recognized at this celebration next week. In addition to that, we're also doing the same thing for labs. So labs are a huge sink for water, energy, and so on, and we're trying to get labs to also become greener by using better practices. So we're trying to enroll them in a Green Labs program. There's a number of other ways that we try to increase campus sustainability. We have a bike share program that is being developed where you can have these automatic locks that the bikes will be available with, with your smartphone. You would be able to unlock the bike, use it, pay a membership, and then return it somewhere. And so we're in the process of piloting that. So we've got various recycling programs. We're trying to convert food waste from the housing units into biodiesel that is then used by the campus carpool people. We have a biomass boiler at the energy farm where they're burning the energy, the bioenergy crops and the residues and so on to produce bioenergy. So various activities like that the students are involved in. We do get quite a bit of recognition for our sustainability efforts, and so we are part of the STARS program, and we've got this gold star rating, and we are doing pretty well compared to the Big Ten schools and many other schools. Really, we're pretty high up in that. We get a number of other awards every year, and these are some of those that are listed here. Again, as an effort we use this funding that we got from Stu Levnick, the alumni from here, who gave us $500,000 to announce these Levnick Fellows. And what they're trying to do is basically trying to see how we can nudge people to be more aware of their energy consumption. So of course you see these things, turn off your lights, but many of us don't, remember to do that. We don't remember to turn off our computers when we leave in the evening. And all of those are consuming energy, which is not only costly, but also a source of greenhouse gas emissions. So what, Erica Myers and this grad student are going to do is to see whether, making people more aware of the need to do that on a more regular basis to to understand how well that works. And so, a lot of our not doing these things is partly because of inattention and, being absent-minded about it. And also not knowing, how much difference would it really make if I did turn off the light or I didn't. So they're working in some of the dorms where actually there are meters, so you can measure how students responded to these nudges that you gave them. And they're going to be doing an experiment trying to see, if you tell them, look, if you turn off your electricity or turn off your computers or lower the setting on your thermostat, you can save this much of energy, or your neighbors are doing this, and so it gives you kind of this additional peer pressure to also be sustainable, and then having awards and things like that. So it's to look at these kind of behavioral mechanisms to get people to be more conscious about their energy usage, to see how well these work, and then and then to see if we can then implement something like this on campus. I mean, part of the challenge is that we don't have meters by floors, we don't have meters by offices and by rooms. So it's very hard for people to, for us to be able to measure the benefits of our own individual actions, and also to encourage people to do something about it, to incentivize people. So this sort of would tell us whether going down that path of having more individual meters for floors or buildings and so on would be beneficial. Of course, the other challenge is that none of us pays the utility bills here. So it's, we are so disconnected from it that it's, so, and there are, so there's, and then there are a lot of the changes, of course, need to be made as structural. So, our heating system on campus is very outdated. And moving to a completely electrified system rather than this, the water cooling system and heating system we have, which is very expensive. So there's a lot of structural changes, but then there's also these few things that we can do as individuals, and of course, here the thing is, can we focus on those, and how far are those effective? So this is actually a new area of research that's emerging now, not only on of course, on campuses, but electric utilities across the country are becoming very interested in trying to, even in our homes, we often are not very conscious about when we use our appliances, whether it's at the peak time or at night, and do we turn the thermostat down or not. So there's, this research which is looking at how information provision to customers can change their behavior. And so there are these devices that they will give you. A lot of this is happening in California, where it can tell you that if you use your dishwasher now versus if you use it later, what difference would it make, or and things like that. So it's sort of these nudges that can change actions, lead to better actions. So I think that's sort of what I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.